15 years ago, my life was almost perfect. And then the doctor told me that I had cancer. As soon as I heard the C word, it was as if life was saying no to me. I decided then that I had to get past that no and say yes to the rest of my life.
The more you've experienced no, the more you're exercising the muscle, and it gets stronger. So that when the next no comes, you're like, oh, I've seen that no before.
When life has said no to me, it has been my circle, my family, my connections
There you go.
that have encouraged me when otherwise I would become consumed by discouragement.
But the secret sauce of saying yes when life says no is believing in something greater than you, bigger than you, more powerful than you, or that is beyond your current comprehension or understanding of what's possible, and still going forward, despite all that.
I'm DeForest B. Soaries Jr., and this is Say Yes When Life Says No, a series that probes deeply into the reality that each of us experiences a disappointment, or worse, a rejection, a denial, a big no in our lives. Today we have a guest who experienced a no when he applied to the college of his choice. He experienced a no when he won a competition and then was literally denied, almost denied, in front of 14 million people on live television, and how he said no to his no. He describes the importance of knowing who you are in whatever situation you find yourself. You'll be inspired and challenged and instructed by our guest today, Dr. Randal Pinkett.
In America's boardrooms and business schools, success is never just earned, it's tested. And for Dr. Randal Pinkett, author, entrepreneur, and winner of NBC's The Apprentice, those tests began long before he stepped into any spotlight. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in New Jersey, he learned early that ambition alone wouldn't be enough. There were rooms where people who looked like him were rarely invited. He was told he didn't belong in higher-level courses. He saw raised eyebrows when he set his sights on Rutgers, then Oxford, then MIT. He heard no from investors who couldn't see past their own limitations to recognize his vision. But every closed door became a blueprint. That relentless drive led him to create BCT Partners, now one of the nation's leading consulting firms, advancing equity, innovation, and social impact. A multi-million-dollar enterprise born from persistence, purpose, and unwavering belief that representation doesn't just matter. It transforms the world. Dr. Randal Pinkett's story isn't just about climbing the ladder of success. It's about redesigning it and holding it wide open for everyone coming behind him.
Joining me in the studio today is just a superstar. He is someone that I've admired for years, and someone that, if you don't remember, you will remember by the time we get finished today. We have entrepreneur, author, thought leader right here today on Say Yes When Life Says No, Randal Pinkett. Randal, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here. Good to see you.
So Randal, we talk to people all the time about the fact that life comes with no's, with barriers, with opposition. But rarely do we encounter someone who was basically told no after winning a competition, going through a grueling process, and then at the conclusion, when it's time to get the prize, you're basically told no on national television. But you were so prepared on The Apprentice to respond to that no. Talk about that night and how it felt.
Yeah, so to set the context, The Apprentice reality television show, in the early years of reality TV.
Right.
18 entrepreneurs competing to run one of Donald Trump's companies. Final two, Lincoln Center, 14 million people, live television.
Live.
We get through the deliberations. Donald says, Randal, you're hired. I'm celebrating. I'm high-fiving the cast. I'm doing chest bumps. I'm pointing at the camera. Called me back. He actually banged the table, called me back and said, Randal, something else I want to ask you. After having just been hired and declared the winner, do you want to share the title with the runner-up? Which is kind of like a remix on a no. Like, I want you,
Right.
but I don't want you. I want both of you.
Right.
And by any objective standard, it was not a tie. It wasn't a close competition. And I say that with all humility and all objectivity. But I did hear rumors that he was going to contemplate pulling that stunt. So I was prepared for him to hire us outright. I wasn't prepared for him to hire me and then ask me, do you want to share the title? But I knew I had a guiding principle going in. I'm not walking away from that boardroom table unless I am the single and sole winner, which reflected my words. Because after he asked me, I said, Donald, I should be the single and sole winner.
Right.
I said, this is not the apprentice,
Right.
it's the apprentice.
Apprentice would be the Greek version of a plural.
Right, exactly. And he said, is that how you think it should be? I said, that's how I think it should be. And it's interesting, in the pandemic, my daughter found the show, because she wasn't born when the show came out. And we watched it together. I didn't tell her the scenario. And at that moment, she said, Daddy, why did he do it? I said, well, truthfully, I don't know why he did it. But I'll tell you what my message was that night to you and to everyone else. That when you have earned the title, do not be afraid to claim the title. And that's what I did.
We had a watch party at the church
Yes.
with hundreds of people.
Yes.
And when that happened, you could hear pin drop. But after your response, it was like a Super Bowl victory. It was unbelievable. But to have that resolve and to be prepared instantly.
Yeah.
Many of us have to regroup after having a disappointment, a rejection, a no. You were ready on the spot.
Yeah.
And I think that is when your stock went up, not just in my mind, but in so many people. People will remember that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the first no that you received. I know you as a PhD from MIT, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world, Rhodes Scholar, but MIT didn't want you at first.
Mm-hmm. Right. So coming out of high school, looking at college, I'd applied to, some of the top tier schools. In fact, I got rejected by Princeton, got accepted by Rutgers, which is the State University of New Jersey, which ended up being an absolute blessing. Because Rutgers ended up, I say to young people nowadays, it's not about the best school, it's the best fit.
Right.
And Rutgers was absolutely the best fit. I don't think MIT would have been the right place for me coming out of high school. Especially having been there as a grad student, I'm actually confident it wasn't the right place for me as an undergrad.
Right.
It's actually quite a stressful environment at MIT. And so having made it through Rutgers and done well, to be named the first African-American Rhodes Scholar from Rutgers is almost a validation, like, yeah, you belonged in that environment.
Right.
And then to Oxford, and then finally found my way to MIT. And so it was kind of a circuitous path to get to the top tier engineering school. It wasn't a yes at first, it was a no, and then later it became a yes.
Right. So at what point did the rejection or the non-admission at MIT become, in your mind, a blessing and not just a rejection? It didn't happen right away.
Right. I'd say the day I got in, it became a blessing, and having the maturity to reflect on.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right place or the right time. It was when I was much older, much more mature, much more prepared, much more grounded. Because MIT, as I've learned, which attracts, not surprisingly, a lot of introverts, it doesn't bring you out.
Right.
Rutgers brought me out, so
Right.
that when I got to MIT, I might actually bring some other people out.
Right. Well, in terms of bringing you out and being a right fit, not only did the no to MIT create a good fit for you at Rutgers, but you met your future business partners.
That's exactly right.
You wouldn't have met them at MIT.
That's right.
How did you, in college, identify people that you would actually end up being in partnership with after college? Most of us meet people in college and we party with them and then that's it.
Yeah.
But you developed in college the basis of a very thriving and successful business.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, it's a story that I've come to appreciate more and more as I've gotten older. And it reminds me of a lyric from one of the songs from Hamilton, where they say, what are the odds the gods would have put us all in one spot? And that's from the song Not Gonna Miss My Shot.
Right.
Because who would have imagined that 4 black men who had never even imagined themselves entrepreneurs, that Jeffrey Robinson and I met the first meeting of the National Society of Black Engineers. He sat next to me. They said, turn to your right and introduce yourself. He said, I'm JR. I said, I'm Randy. I was Randy back then.
Right.
And then Dallas and Lawrence were roommates their first year. JR and I were roommates our last year. So then here's where it gets interesting. The Rutgers chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers has a big brother, little sister program where they randomly assign you to mentor a first-year student when you're a second-year student. I'm randomly assigned to mentor Lawrence. Can you imagine that?
Amazing.
And Jeffrey is randomly assigned to mentor Dallas. So you got 2 friends mentoring 2 friends who then got the entrepreneurial bug my senior year, Lawrence and Dallas's junior year, started a business selling compact discs. And most people listening right now, half the people listening right now are like, what's a compact disc?
Right.
Or they confused it with a record. No, it's a small, shiny one.
You were selling blank discs or
Actual music.
actual music?
We actually bought it from a wholesaler in
see.
Philadelphia, had it shipped overnight and delivered to your dorm. That was our first venture.
So you were the Amway version
Yes.
of CD sales.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Is that right?
And now, 35 years later, we're still friends. 30 years later, we're still co-founders in business. And our third company is celebrating 25 years, BCT Partners.
That is amazing. It's amazing in so many ways, not the least of which being most startups don't last
Yeah,
beyond 7 years.
yeah,
And to think that you were kids starting up
yeah, yeah.
is just amazing.
Yeah.
Where did you get your strategies from? Where did you look to for guidance? You were untested,
Yeah,
untried entrepreneurs
Yeah.
and kids.
yeah.
So where did you get this knowledge from?
So you might have planted this question, and you'll realize why I say that once I answer it. So you can imagine we were in our 20s when we started and transitioned from the CD sales to running an actual consulting firm.
Right.
Technology consulting is where we started. And we had no track record, no credibility. No one was willing to give us a shot. So it turns out, as you know very well, Lawrence, Dallas, and I all worshiped at First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens. And there was a gentleman there named Pastor DeForest Soaries, who we went to and said, could you give us a shot? And I'll never forget what you said. You said, I'm going to give you a shot. You said, if you do well, I'm going to tell everybody. If you mess up, I'm going to tell everybody.
I don't remember that at all, but I believe it. I believe it.
And the long story short, we did a great job for you.
I'm not sure I knew then, though, that you had done nothing. I think I thought you must have done something other than sell CDs.
Individual track records, but no company track record. So you
Okay.
took a gamble, and we installed the computers in the network at the old building,
Right.
and got everybody on the internet, and
Right.
that was our first break. And I'm gonna get real with you. That was a $45,000 contract.
Wow.
It was $15,000 upfront in our revenues in 2000, because it was the end of the year. $15,000.
Well, good for you. good for you. Let's fast forward, because I saw some literature, some media, just a few years ago that ranked your company as one of the top black businesses in the country.
Yeah.
And a lot of your business came from government contracts. How did you go from wiring a church, by the way, with future technology? I mean, what was fascinating about the work you did was that you didn't simply equip the church for the current need, but you actually equipped the church for future technologies that we didn't even know
Yeah.
were coming.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you get from wiring a church to doing multi-million-dollar contracts with the federal government?
Yeah, we made the decision early on that we would pivot from doing corporate work, which is what parlayed from the work with you, to going into government. Now, why did we make the pivot? At the time, 2000, 2001, 2002, technology was evolving very, very rapidly, which is the point you're making a moment ago. And we had a very hard time getting long contracts and large contracts. It was all 20,000, 50,000. I'm not disparaging those contracts,
Right.
but you can't plan a business
Right,
off
right.
of 5-figure contracts and grow, at least not unless you get volume, and we weren't getting volume. We looked at the government's giving out 7-figure contracts, 5-year contracts. So we went into the 8A program, started making trips regularly to Washington, D.C. and marketing ourselves. And at the end of the 8A term, which was 8 years, we got our first federal contract, 2008, 8 years after we did the work with First Baptist. And it was with HUD. And that ended up, once you learn the federal game, which is much more complex than the private sector game.
Right.
Private sector give you a contract off a 1-pager. Government, 100-pager. So once we learned the game and got that first contract, we blew up.
How many contracts did you fail to get before you got the first contract?
Oh my gosh, great question. Again, it was we probably went into the program in 2004, maybe thereabouts. So we probably spent 4 to 8 years failing, losing contracts. And I remember we hired a business development manager, and she said to me, she says, "How much longer are we going to keep losing?" I said, "Listen to me." I said, "I guarantee you, we're going to win this game as long as we keep bidding and keep getting debriefed on what we did wrong." And that's what we did. We kept asking the contracting officer, what did we do wrong? And we kept learning and learning and learning. I told her, we're going to win. And when we won that contract, I said, I told you.
That's a major lesson. It's a major lesson to know that you can do a debrief on a loss.
Yes.
You can do an analysis of why you lost, and that analysis contributes to what ultimately would be your success.
Yep, exactly. And we documented every single debrief. Sometimes they give you a document to debrief,
Right.
but we would ask voluminous questions, document it all. Next proposal, we know exactly what to do.
But I think more important than the postmortem analysis is the fact that you have to have the spiritual stamina to stay encouraged.
Yes.
Because if you lose your encouragement, then you lose hope. If you lose hope, you'll stop trying.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys had. You guys have had a spirit of hope and possibility that has kept you going through some very difficult times. Recently, the federal game has changed.
Dramatically.
The federal government has cut back on contracts. How has the Doge and Elon Musk and federal contract cutting affected your business?
We have been hammered by the federal cuts. You know, our business growth is like a stock. You know, and we've actually drawn the graph of our growth, and it has dips and valleys and peaks. And we just hit a valley. When Doge and the Trump administration took over, they slashed federal contracts left and right, and any federal contractor, even the bigger boys and girls who might have maybe taken a disproportionate hit, but small, medium, or large, you probably felt the effects, and we felt it at BCT. We've been about 65% federal contracts.
Doing what kind of work?
IT, data management, more recently artificial intelligence, traditional training, management consulting, strategy. So we're pretty diversified across the entire civilian portfolio, and we actually done some work with DoD as well. But we lost about a third of our contracts from these cancellations. And so the first 6 months of the year, 2025, we have been trying to quickly pivot into state and local, private foundations, expand what was our footprint in the private sector. And I'm actually proud to say we've turned the corner. You know, we've been able to stabilize the business, but the first 6 months were difficult, very difficult.
But again, it takes that spirit of hope.
Yeah.
It takes a belief in yourself and your products and your team and your ability to do the pivot. Otherwise, the kind of slashing that's taken place could reasonably give an intelligent person reason to say, that's enough.
Yeah, and I believe that when we talk on this topic of, you know, responding to no, it's like a muscle. The more you've experienced no, the more you're exercising the muscle, and it gets stronger. So that when the next no comes, you're like, "Oh, I've seen that no before. Like I've seen that movie before. I know how to respond." And so I remember at a town hall in the middle of this crisis, I said to our team, I said, "Understand, we've been here before. Like we know what it looks like to pivot. We did it in the pandemic. We know what it's like to develop a strategy in response to a no. So we're not new to this, and I'm confident that we have the levers." And again, that's what experience teaches you. Do I have the levers to be able to get out of my current situation? And experience tells you also, I don't have the levers to get out of this situation, so there's no point in fighting it.
Right. Yeah,
Experience is
right.
the best teacher.
You stay very, very attuned to your assets and your liabilities.
Exactly.
Your strengths and your weaknesses.
Exactly.
Listen, we're talking to Randal Pinkett, CEO of BCT Partners. He is the only African American to prevail in the former TV show, The Apprentice, whose star was our current president, Donald J. Trump. And he was essentially the talk of the town, as it were, because of the way that show ended and the way he responded. He just described it, and we're going to come back to talk more about some of the way he's been helping people understand their potential in light of predictable barriers. The year that my life was doing its best was the same year I was diagnosed with cancer. My response to that diagnosis is described in this book, Say Yes When Life Says No. Go to my website, dbsoaries.com, pick up a copy of the book, and I hope you'll be inspired by the way I was able to get past my no and embrace my life saying yes. You wrote a book called Black Faces in White Places. Mm-hmm. And that book sought to help African Americans understand the navigational strategies, the tools, and the processes for succeeding essentially in corporate America and in other major institutional settings that are dominated by Caucasians. Why did you write that book?
It was a reflection of my lived experience. My co-author, my business partner, my roommate in college, Jeffrey Robinson, we both had the experience of growing up in predominantly white communities. He grew up in Parsippany. I grew up in East Windsor. Right. And if anyone doesn't know, right. Parsippany and East Windsor, suffice it to say, there's not a lot of people who look like me in the 1970s and 80s.
Centers at all. Right.
And so we went to predominantly white schools. We worked in predominantly white organizations and learned some valuable lessons, which we all learn, about how do you navigate those environments and not lose a sense of who you are. How do you define yourself in an environment where you see few reflections of yourself? And then how do you do that in professional settings where it's competitive and there's expectations and there's the pressures to perform and et cetera, et cetera. So we originally went to the book publishers wanting to do an autobiography. Most people don't know this. But the publishing folks were like, we don't find anything interesting about your individual stories. Right. There's no rags to riches. There's no highs or lows. You all were good kids who did well in school and did well in your careers. Don't like it. So our agent came back and said, and actually our agent is Earl Cox, who's Lynette Calfani Cox's husband now. Earl said, let's remix the book and let's go interview prominent figures, and we interviewed you for that book, and learn how they navigated those environments and then distill the strategies that they used, the patterns that you see in the interviews, and that's what gave rise to the subtitle, 10 Game-Changing Strategies to Achieve Success and Find Greatness.
What are the top 3?
So, number 1, I've just given voice to. It's actually strategy number 1, obtain a strong identity and purpose. Identity is knowing who you are, purpose is knowing where you're going. I say identity is your anchor, it keeps you grounded. Purpose is your compass, it keeps you going. Strategy 3, demonstrate excellence. Meritocracy is out of your control. You can't control whether you are rewarded for your performance. That's a meritocracy.
Right.
You can control whether you are excellent. And excellence is not about being the best, it's about being your best.
Right.
So, and it's also, I love this, I think it's, I'm forgetting, I think it was Booker T. Washington, I forget who said it, but it's, excellence is doing your best whether or not somebody's watching. So I love that quote. That's number 3. And then lastly is strategic action number 10, strategy number 10, give back generously. So we'll say it very succinctly, lift as you climb.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent. And that book has been impactful everywhere I go. There are people who, when they know I know you, more important than your TV personality is that book. Now, how does that book translate for people who are not African American?
It's a great question. You know, what I found fascinating is if you listen to the strategies, even the three I just gave you,
Right.
they are not specific.
That's right. They're universal.
They're universal. And we were inspired by Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right.
In fact, we sought out to figure out what are the strategies, kind of like the habits that
Right.
folks like you and others we interviewed demonstrated. And so it just so happens that when we look back, we're like, you know what, these are agnostic to any walk of life. And we wrote a sequel in the pandemic called Black Faces in High Places, where we revisited the themes of the first book. But here's the difference. The first book was how do you get to the top?
Right.
Second book was how do you stay at the top? Because what you've learned from being Secretary of State and being a pastor of a church is that getting there is a certain set of strategies. But once you get there,
Right.
and all the eyes are on you, and you're what I call the final escalation point, like when it all has messed up, and a bunch of smart people couldn't figure it out, and it's on your desk, how do you handle that?
Right.
And that's what the second book addresses.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful because people can succeed and then fumble. So many people. And we read about it and hear about it all the time. And it's not a matter of intellect.
Yeah.
It's really, in many instances, a matter of a lack of preparation for being there.
That's exactly right. And it ties back to strategic action number one.
Right.
If you don't know who you are,
Right.
and you don't know where you're going, the analogy I draw is winds blowing. The higher you go, the more violent the winds. If you're not anchored in your identity and who you are, like you can't tell me who I am, I know who I am.
Right.
And if you don't have a sense of direction where you're going, then the wind will blow you off course. And if you haven't solidified that before you get to the high place, it's too late.
Well, it is too late because
It's
what
too late.
happens is your identity becomes consumed by the place.
Right, exactly.
And your title becomes your persona.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when you lose the title, you lose a sense of who you are
Exactly.
and you're lost. You see that with athletes all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah, it's an interesting understanding of no. Because there are times when we almost have to tell ourselves, no, I am not what I drive.
Yes.
No, I am not what I wear. No,
Yeah.
I am not my title.
That's right.
I am me, and for this season, I'm in that role. Yeah.
And society, unfortunately, especially in an American capitalist society, defaults to defining us based on
Oh, absolutely.
what we wear and the car that we drive and the title. You know, it's funny, we do a lot of work at BCT on cross-cultural communication. And I say one of the ways to distinguish individualist versus a collectivist culture is what's the first question people ask you? In an individualistic culture, they'll ask you, what do you do?
What do you do? Right.
And in a
Because
collect-
that's who you are.
Because that's who you are.
Right.
In a collectivist culture, they'll ask you, where are you from?
Right.
What family are you a part
That's
of?
right.
It's a
What
very
village
different
did you grow up
orientation.
in? Yeah.
And that's how they'll define themselves based
That's
on the
right.
collective and not the individual.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's very powerful. That's very powerful. So, Dr. Pinkett, what advice do you have for young people who aren't yet in high places and they're thinking through their futures and the future's changing so quickly? It's hard to know how to plan because it's so unpredictable the future is. What principles should we be sharing with young people as they go about the task of planning their own lives for a future that's unknown?
Yeah. You know, it's hidden in our discussion today because if you listen closely to my story, I align with 3 young black men who were going someplace, and iron ended up sharpening iron. You don't get through 35 years together as friends, 30 in business, 25 for this venture, unless you're both like-minded and like-hearted. And the fact that 3 of us worshiped at the same church,
Right.
First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens, is a reflection of the heart, not the head. And so my advice is this old adage we've all heard many, many times: you show me your friends, you show me your future.
Right.
And it's not just for adolescence. You know, I think about one's professional journey, and you talk about boards of directors and all the things that you do. You know, it's having that personal board of directors, those who you trust and know you and you trust to give you honest, forthright advice. But more importantly, they also can be your role model. They can be your sounding board. They can be the iron that sharpens your iron. I mean, Jeffrey has 5 degrees. I have 5 degrees. I mean, who has 5 degrees?
Right.
And we were roommates together. So it's like there's something about that strength in numbers, which is actually strategic action number 6 in the book. Strength in numbers and finding like-minded and like-hearted individuals that can propel you in your adolescence, but can also propel you into your career.
Yeah, that's the key, because life doesn't just change for you. If life is going to change, it changes for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's easier to navigate and manage and discern if you are traveling with people who are going in the same direction. It's like traveling in a car and there's a detour on the road. If you have 4 people in the car, you have 4 possible options.
Yes.
And 4 possible opinions on where to go.
And when life tells you no, they're the ones that step in to say no. Life is saying yes. Keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing.
No, that's exactly right. When life has said no to me, it has been my circle, my family, my connections.
There you go.
That have encouraged me when otherwise I would become consumed by discouragement.
Exactly.
Yeah. I could not imagine a better person to talk to pursuant to this theme, say yes when life says no, than Dr. Randal Pinkett. What does that expression mean to you?
To me, it speaks to faith at the end of the day. I mean, all of what we've talked about, knowing who you are, knowing where you're going, all of that is worthless if you don't have faith, you know. Because again, when life says no, you're now stepping into the uncertain. And there's a saying, which I won't get quite right, but you know, faith is coming to the edge of what you know, and that knowing that either of 2 things will happen. Either you will find wings to fly, or that road will be extended for you to continue. But without faith, you don't even take the step.
That's it.
You know? So, yeah, know who you are. Yeah, know where you're going. Yeah, surround yourself with like-minded people. But the secret sauce of saying yes when life says no is believing in something greater than you, bigger than you, more powerful than you, or that is beyond your current comprehension or understanding of what's possible, and still going forward, despite all that.
Right. That's a good description of faith, and it's a good response when life says no.
Yes.
So, folks, I've been here with Dr. Randal Pinkett, who is just a phenomenal leader, great author, brilliant business person, and just a great guy. And he's described for you his understanding of what it means to say yes when life says no. At the core of one's ability to say yes is faith. Faith is the bridge that takes you from your no to your yes. And he's a living example of that. And the best is yet to come. I'll be right back with closing remarks.
Want to learn more about Dr. Randal Pinkett, BCT Partners, or discover his books? Visit randalpinkett.com and connect with his story, his insights, and bring his leadership and innovation to your work and life.
Our theme is say yes when life says no, but you and I both know that when we hear a no, when we are denied access, when we are rejected, our first response is not yes. We don't feel that it's good news, it's bad news, and it is. So we need a bridge that takes us from experiencing our no to embracing and executing on our yes. Dr. Pinkett gave us some advice that could be considered that bridge. Having surrounded ourselves with positive people moving in the same direction, that's a bridge. Having a standard of pursuing excellence at all times, that's a bridge that takes us from our no to our yes. Knowing who you are, having a firm sense of self-identity, that's a bridge. And so between the time we have our negative experiences and we are experiencing some level of discouragement, and the time when we kind of dust ourselves off and look for our secret sauce, it's faith. It's the faith to believe that we can do it. It's the faith that propels us when we are there, as he said, to claim our prize and not be denied because we know we're able and we're qualified. So saying yes when life says no can in fact be a process. And everyone we talk to during this series is going to explain how they've managed their process and achieved the unachievable, and that is to look no in the face and say yes when life says no. Thank you for watching this show, Say Yes When Life Says No. Subscribe and stay tuned for future segments.